Hi, this is Nina Perlove from RealFluteProject.com, and today I'm going to talk about the Mozart Concerto in D major. And some of you might be auditioning for the YouTube Symphony Orchestra, and this is one of the required pieces. So I pulled out my copy of the Mozart D major, which has seen better days. Obviously, I've played this piece a few times before. The first thing is, in the first movement, the title is Allegro aperto, and that means fast and open aperto. So make sure that your sound quality and your character has an open presence in the sound and in the expression itself. And one of the things that I love about this movement is that it really, to me, has the quality of playfulness that I think of when I think of Mozart, and even of laughter. So I'm going to show you some of those spots. If any of you have seen my video called Playing with Pop, I encourage you to watch that one, because that technique of using the diaphragm or the abdominal muscles in that bel canto style to get expression underneath the articulation is so important in this movement of Mozart. So what I mean by that is you want all the tia-ta-ta to really have energy behind it, so that the expression itself, so that the articulation itself becomes expressive. So when we have, for instance, rather than just playing it straight, you want to give it some energy. Tia ha 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 ha. So practice it with, instead of using your tongue on the articulated notes, just use a ha articulation, so that you're drawing the sound from deep in your body. So I use no tongue. Ha ha. Then when you add the tongue in, keep that same energy. So that it comes to life a little bit more. Now, whenever I have two slurred notes followed by two articulated notes, I always like to say tia-taka. That way the second note that's under the slur doesn't get lost or swallowed or even cut off short. Tia-taka, tia-taka. Tia-taka, 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 tia-taka. Tia-taka-ta. Even in the beginning run. Ta-tra-ra-ra, tia-taka, tia-taka-ta. Tia-taka, tia-taka-ta. That way every note speaks, and it's really important that you don't just skip through those notes. That's not going to capture the energy when some of the notes don't even speak. That's not right. You want tia-taka, tia-taka-ta. So I really like to think of these notes as laughing notes. And it's so much like a singer, an opera singer who sings ha 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 ha, where we want the same quality, ha 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 ha. And the thing that I love about the Mozart concertos is that they're just opera music that's written for the flute. So if you want to know the quality of Mozart, watch this video. I'm going to put a link right under here to the singer Eric Owens performing Mozart. It's everything that you need to know about how to sing Mozart in the right character. And that's another spot where I really hear the laughter. Da 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 ha 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 ha. And this is a section where I like to create a noticeable difference between what I call the laughing figures, da 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 ha 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 ha, and the lyrical sentimental gesture, which is da dee da dee da da. Then back to the laughing, da 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 ya ha 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 ha. So I almost feel two separate characters interacting with each other during these little phrases. together. We have a merging of the laughing figure, da dee da 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 dee da da da, but now it's lyrical because we have the slur marking. We no longer have the bouncing notes. To me, it's really the coming together of those two emotions here. I also really like to have a very playful, almost sneaky quality at measure 65. Just really like a blanket of sound, but you still want to make sure that every note speaks cleanly. You don't want it to become muffled. You don't want it's still Mozart, and it has to have that clarity. Oh, there I did. I said it again. Tia taka, tia taka, tia taka, tia taka taka taka, tia taka, tia taka, tia taka, tia taka, tia. That was really funny right there what I just played, because that B to C sharp trill I played with the traditional B to C sharp fingering, which normally is on your left hand. You have to do the first finger and the thumb together, even though I have a C sharp trill on my flute, which means that I should only have to do that. But for the first, the first 15, maybe 20 years that I played the flute, I never had a flute with a C sharp trill, so I got so used to doing this that I often forget that I have the C sharp trill, and I have to remind myself. Sometimes I have to even write in my music a reminder to use my C sharp trill. And I always like, where is it again? Because I'm not used to it. But it really is much easier to use the C sharp trill and can be a lot cleaner and more even than trying to coordinate the two fingers at once in the left hand. So now moving on to the Mozart G major concerto. Many of the things that I talked about in the D major concerto also apply to the G major. So just a few things that are unique to the Mozart G major. And by the way, a huge thunderstorm just started. So if you hear like crashing sounds while I'm making this video, they're not just for dramatic effect. There actually is a thunderstorm going on. So Allegro maestoso, so this is much more majestic in character, but yet with the same playfulness that I feel is also in the D major concerto. And one of the challenges in this movement is going down to the low Ds frequently and getting those to speak. So right at the very beginning, we have the theme when it repeats at the lower octave. So to help get those low Ds to really have presence and character and depth, I'm going to point out a few things to avoid doing. One of the most common mistakes that people make, and I'm going to turn to the side so you can see a little better, is that when we move down to the lower register, there's a psychological tendency to want to slightly dip lower, like we're actually moving lower. Don't do that. Try to stay straight. If you tip your chin down to try to reach those low notes, you're actually going to overdo the angle that you need to change the air into the embouchure hole, and it won't speak. So do not do. You don't want to dip. Just keep yourself straight. And let it speak that way. The other thing is, rather than feeling like you're blowing those low notes out, feel that you're sucking them in through your flute, that you're actually drawing the low notes back into your body where they can resonate in your chest, in your head, in your sinuses, in your neck. You want those low notes to resonate there. And again, I had mentioned the video of Eric Owens singing Mozart, and listen to him too, because that wonderful low voice that he has, it just resonates so beautifully, and that's the quality that you're trying to capture even on the flute, which is obviously a more soprano instrument. Nevertheless, we want to create all the different characters and all the different range that we can with just one instrument. Now, in looking at the thirds passage at B, you want to practice it several different ways. So practice it first the way it's indicated, thinking of the notes as ascending gestures, as the ascending thirds. Tia, tia, tia. Again, I'm saying tia, 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 tia. And then spend some time thinking of them as descending seconds. So instead of the dia, think of it as da, tia, 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 tia. But I usually don't practice it putting the articulations together that way. I was just doing that to illustrate it for you on the video. It's just something mentally and visually with your eyes that you're going to look at the descending gesture sometimes instead of the ascending. Practice it both ways, and then practice it thinking of them as groups of four. Tia, 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 tia. So that eventually you can play it all together as one smooth, continuous line. Now, one place where I especially like to hear the laughing gestures are at the end of the exposition of this movement. For instance, in measure 86 and 88. Bum, 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 bum. I really hear that as ha, 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 tia, ha, ha, tia, ha, ha, tia, ha, ha. So you want to have some separation to those notes. So you can practice it. The way I just played it right there was without any tongue. Tia, ha, 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 ha. So when you add in the tongue, it speaks very nicely. The last suggestion that I have for you working on either of the two Mozart concertos is to make sure you practice regularly with a metronome. It's very important that you maintain proper rhythm and also an evenness of tempo. Sometimes when we get to runs, there's a tendency to want to rush them and go faster, and it's very important that you have that consistency. And if you want to do any variations in the tempo while you're playing, they must be consciously done for an artistic reason and purpose, not because you didn't realize that you were just going too fast or too slow in a certain passage. So no matter what your level, whether you're an intermediate player or a professional player, I still practice with my metronome all the time just to make sure I'm getting that consistency. So for those of you who are auditioning for the YouTube Symphony, good luck on your auditions, and I hope you enjoyed this video and found some of it helpful.